Property Matters on Dublin South FM and on iProperty Radio with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on social media at iProperty Radio or email hello@ipropertyradio.com. Today we have something a bit different for you. Generally, we talk about the industry and we try to almost assume the impact on the consumer. Today, we're speaking to a consumer of the rental market in Dublin. Rajat Sabulal, you are so welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on the show, Carol. It's great to kind of share my experience with you guys.
Well, Rajat, again, I mentioned it there in the start. You know, we talk a lot about the rental process in Ireland. We talk a lot about the policies, the legislation, and I'm a huge proponent of technology that can make it better. Unfortunately, our industry is not as quick to adopt the digital tools that are available. But an awful lot of what we talk about is anecdotal, and we see that you know, some of the experiences that are highlighted in the media certainly are maybe the extreme ones. And through our own office, we've had the experience of some of our team, and in fact, my own daughter having to find rental accommodation in Dublin in the last couple of months. And what was really interesting to me was that there was two very different experiences had. So I'm curious about this. I feel that it's important for the industry to learn more about how the consumers are experiencing the rental market in Dublin. So I genuinely appreciate you sharing your story with us. So first of all, let me ask, have you actually found somewhere to rent?
Yes, I was lucky enough to find a place, and I mean, the process was very tedious, and I will share. I will be very bold and mention that I purely got the place on the basis of luck. If I wasn't, I got it in probably 2 months, but I was speculating the process to go as long as 6 to 8 months, given the previous history and how the circumstances are at the moment. So it was sheer luck, honestly, Carol, that worked in our place.
I think that it's crazy that you have to be lucky to find a place in Dublin within 2 months. That's just outrageous. So tell me, how long have you been in Dublin?
So it's been 2 years at the moment that I've been in Dublin. I came in 2020 during COVID, and I think it's been 2 years. I was staying I've stayed at 2 different places, and this is the 3rd place that I'm renting at the moment. So
okay. And did you, well, first of all, why did you leave either of your other 2 places? Why were you actually back out into the rental market?
So it was a personal decision. It had nothing to do with the fact that the landlord had to kick me out or something like that. So I was staying in a previous place wherein I was a student, needed a bigger place to stay. So I rented a place with a couple of friends, and now it's myself and my partner. We wanted a place just for ourselves. So we were looking for a separate 2 BHK, and we were lucky to get it, honestly.
Oh, and can I ask the area, where did you eventually find somewhere?
Oh, so we're living near Leopardstown at the moment. So it's a pretty decent place.
Are you working locally yourself and your partner?
Yeah. We work locally. We work in Dublin. So I work in the advertising industry, and she works in the pharma space.
Okay, and are you in the city centre?
So we work in city centre, in and around city centre. So from Leopardstown, it's good because there's connectivity to it, so that's pretty sorted. And we were looking for that sort of a place that had connectivity to work, and it'd be easier to move to and fro from work. So this kind of work for us.
When you were starting your house hunting for a place to rent, you know, obviously the media commentary and your own experience would have told you that actually there's not a lot of choice. And this is, you know, this is forcing some people who are working in the city centre up to County Louth, out to Kildare, down to County Wexford. How broad, how wide was the area you were searching?
We had an area that was very centered to a couple of places. So because we previously lived in Dun Laoghaire, we knew the kind of place that we are looking for, and we wanted it slightly closer to Dun Laoghaire because we had a friend circle over there, and also easier accessibility to work. So I'd say that our search was restricted to a couple of areas in Dublin, more around South Dublin and some places like Leopardstown that are more easily accessible to work. We didn't really, and to be honest, like we expected that our search would have to be widened because given the history and after talking to so many people about the experiences that they had, we weren't expecting to find a place very easily. So it just worked out, honestly. Uh,
How many places did you have to, I suppose, email about, and how many viewings did you get?
so we probably sent across, we used Daft, Rent.I, probably all the portals that are available. I know maybe so there were like a couple of weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, wherein every day we'd send, say, it was a routine process that was in our minds that we had to follow, like say 10 to 20 applications we'd put in, and then all of that kind of so say 10 to 20 applications on a daily basis for say 3 weeks, and then the viewings, I don't know, I think we got 3 to 5, I know, I'd say 5 to 7 viewings probably, maybe.
That's a very low hit rate
Yeah,
from, 10 to 20 emails a day for 3 weeks, only to get 5 to 7 emails. That's a very low hit rate.
that's the harsh reality, unfortunately.
Did you get even responses from the emails?
We used to get responses, but yeah, the response rate was also pretty terrible, to be honest. And these numbers, I'd say, are slightly on the positive side. Like I know of again, a lot of my friends and a lot of people who I've known. Again, they're people who'd come to Dublin to study, and this sort of a weird scenario exists wherein if it's just a couple of guys who are renting a place out, they don't get responses at all. We don't know how the system works. Like there are a couple of I don't know if it just works very weirdly on how the responses occur. Maybe they look at the whole profile of the people who are applying, but then there are people who don't get responses at all, and these are like probably 300 400 applications people sent across. And there was one viewing that I'd gone to, I think it was around Still Organ. They were, I mean, it's very similar to all the stuff you see on LinkedIn and on Instagram and stuff like that, wherein there are 50 to 100 applicants who are coming for a single house. And we reached there and we said, no, this is not worth it. Like, honestly, for the amount that we're paying. And it just shows how severe and dire the housing crisis is in Dublin at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing is a crazy scenario that two young professionals working in the city centre. So I assume you're on a decent wage and you're struggling so much just to be able to rent a place. And I mean, the affordability is one question that's a challenge that needs to be tackled. But actually, the getting access to it is something like the affordability is less within the control of, say, the letting and managing agents. However, how prospective tenants are engaged with, that is something that's within the control of the estate and letting agents. So in your experience, were you emailing primarily private landlords or private individuals, or were they letting agents or managing agents?
Anyone on Daft, honestly. So there was no filter per se, but we were that, like, we knew Hook and McDonald was good, so we kind of had them as a preference, and we knew a couple of ones like that. So, like, honestly, there was no preference. If we found a place that was within our budget and we were happy with it, we just went for it. And I think it just boiled down to the fact that it was not like it. At some point, we felt that the letting agents also didn't have a choice because there aren't enough accommodations in Dublin at this point. So it's a pure supply and demand crisis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I suppose really the reason I'm asking that particular question is because I'm trying to gauge, is there a difference? So for example, I can understand how individual landlords letting their own properties, probably because they're working full-time during the day and they're trying to deal with this in the evening. If they get 300 inquiries, they find the top 5 potential tenants and show them they're not going to spend the time maybe emailing all of the others. However, letting agents and professionals in this area have a higher duty, and there's an expectation of a much better user and customer experience. So did you find when you were dealing with letting and managing agents, were they better at responding?
To some extent, but then I wouldn't say, like, if you're ideally expecting the letting agencies to send you a response for every single query, Like maybe I don't know how the process works, is if there is some room for automation over there. And that's primarily because I work in the advertising space, wherein like there are tools that are at your uh, disposal that allow you to manage emails more effectively. Maybe that's sort of a similar system if it can be done. It just helps people know, and they're not left hanging saying that, oh, we haven't gotten a response yet. Maybe we will get a response. So if that whole process can be slightly streamlined, it may help some extent.
And do you think that having only been in Dublin for 2 years, you were at a disadvantage?
I would see that's why I wouldn't say I'm at a disadvantage, because I was lucky to get a place. If I was in the similar scenario for 6 to 8 more months, I'd say that definitely it would have been a disadvantage.
Um, Rajat, you keep referring to being lucky
Yeah.
to be able to spend what I'm assuming is a huge chunk
Yeah.
of both your salaries on a place to rent that is within approximate commute. So what are you, 20 minutes, 25 minutes commute from work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much yeah. It's a half an hour journey up and down. Yeah.
Um, again, really, that's not luck. Quite frankly, what you're describing is that you managed to get into a semi-functional situation in a dysfunctional market. But look, and I'm sure some of your peers who are house hunting at the moment, they're probably looking at you very enviously because you have actually found somewhere. What kind of advice are you giving to your peers if they're just looking for something now or have been looking for a number of months?
Just be aggressive and be persistent. It's honestly it sucks to say this, but it's like trying to bag a job. And it shouldn't be, because um if you have the income at your disposal, and if you have all the requirements that are needed, I don't understand why we have to struggle to find a place, because it's a basic necessity. But unfortunately, that basic necessity is not at anyone's disposal. So just be aggressive, just have a process to find a house. And it sounds crazy that you need to have a process in mind to get that. And you also don't get a lot of time, honestly, because you probably have 3 to 4 days to respond. And if you don't respond, somebody else is there. So it's tough, but you just got to stay resilient, I guess.
It's interesting. We've spoken to a few different letting agents about this. And, I mentioned at the top of the show here that actually there are tools available out there. We've spoken to different Irish PropTech providers, and there's international PropTech providers who are providing tools that will allow, for the automated checking of large numbers of tenants and actually ordering them and prioritizing them in terms of, in terms of having their references in order, having their income levels checked. And in fact, one of those that we spoke to most recently, Rent Dodo, they're actually verifying incomes, and also that letting agents can go to a portal and just choose from these pre-qualified tenants. However, which would be great for tenants, the difficulty is that even though these technologies exist, both homegrown and international solutions, and yet the letting and managing agents aren't using them. And what's really interesting is that in a time of such shortage and crisis, we seem to be returning to a very old-fashioned style of analog relationship building. And in fact, we spoke to one letting agent quite recently in the last month who said that because they have so many applicants, that when a property comes in, if they know that they have an existing 3, 4, 5 tenants who would be suitable for this property, they don't actually put the property on Daft or online. They don't market it. They just reach out to the tenants that they have on their books as searching. And in fact, it's interesting, that particular letting agent recommended that tenants walk into the office, meet the team, explain their circumstances, so that when a property comes in, that tenant is well known and first in mind. So it really is a very old-fashioned relationship building. And yet we've heard of other agents, particularly in regional cities around Ireland, that have actually closed their doors. So they're only dealing with emails and phone calls because there were so many people walking in off the street and they just couldn't help them. So how important was the relationship? Because you did refer to one agency and said that they were good. how important was the relationship with the letting agent?
It was not, there was nothing to do with the relationship, honestly. It was just the fact that there was an opportunity online, and we straight away went for it, and they responded to us. So relationship had nothing to do with it. But on that note, uh, the bit that you mentioned, we have heard, like personally, we have heard of this situation that exists, wherein if you have a relationship with the previous letting agency, you just are given preference if there is some sort of a vacancy available within a particular accommodation. So that tends to happen, and that's something that probably, I mean, there are two ways to look at it. It's good to have it, uh, but uh, but yeah, it doesn't put everybody on an equal playing field, honestly.
Oh,
So
it absolutely doesn't, and
yeah,
that's why I wanted. And the thing is, it absolutely doesn't. And yet, if I had a friend coming to me asking for advice, I would say walk into the agent and start
yeah,
building that relationship, because even though I'm a supporter of the technology tools, I know the industry hasn't embraced them enough. So it does. You're right. It absolutely isn't an even playing field. And that's just the reality. So I suppose before we wrap up, is there any kind of tips that you've referred a couple of times to the process? Are there any tips that you can give to people who might be in the same situation that you and your partner were in a couple of months ago?
I think just firstly ensuring that you have all your documents in place, because whatever bits that are needed, you need your landlord reference letters, you need probably an employment reference letter, you need to have your bank statements in place. Whatever bits is needed to kind of showcase that you need, like, this is the amount that you need to shell out. It shouldn't be what, more than 40% of your combined income of sorts. So just make sure you have the math done, you have the documents ready, and then just kind of filter out the places that you want to look at. Have that clearly set out. Uh, is commute a preference? Are your friends a preference? Is your family a preference? Just have that figured out and shortlist an area. And once you do that, I think you just have to uh, constantly keep sending out those emails or applications on a daily basis till you kind of get a feedback, a response, and be very quick with it. Like, if you go for a viewing, just send across the documents probably over the next hour,
Yeah.
because unfortunately that's how it is at this
No,
point.
that's good advice, telling people to be prepared and to be decisive, be ready to make a decision very
Yeah.
quickly. And that's good advice for your peers who might be in a similar position. Have you any advice or any plea that you'd like to make to the industry? Is there anything that could be done to make this a more user-friendly experience, even in the current crisis and shortage that we have at the moment?
Just get more houses, honestly, but that's pretty simple. I think that'll help, maybe.
Get more houses.
Yeah,
Listen, you're saying it, we're saying it, the country shouting for it.
yeah.
Unfortunately, policymakers don't seem to know what that looks like. But listen, get more houses. I think that kind of sums up all of the challenge that the industry is in at the moment. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and for sharing the experience. And I genuinely hope that it helps other people in your position. My thanks to Rajat Sabulal, and we need to take a quick break. Stay tuned.